We're back. Brian Howell, the Buffaloes just had a football practice. Carl Durrell had to wait a very, very, very long time to have his first practice leading the Buffs.
Yeah, and you could tell right off the bat. We talked to him almost right after he got off the field. He was in business mode, and just kind of, he didn't have that relaxed demeanor we've seen in some of the Zoom calls because he's actually had something to do. And I kind of joked with him a little bit because he said, "You guys look more comfortable than me," but I thought he looked very comfortable, probably being back in his element. I thought that I imagine that he really enjoyed today being on the field with those guys, and that's what he's been wanting to do. So it's been a long time.
To your point, you could tell there was a little fire in the belly that he had that we hadn't seen before, which was kind of cool to see. The testing went through without a hitch today. It sounded like it took the solid 2 hours they were anticipating. They come in 10 groups of 10 to get tested, and then they've got to wait. It sounds about 20 minutes from what Miguel was saying. So we'll see. There's going to be hiccups at some point, but hey, day one was a success.
Yeah, it was a success, and it's good to hear that. Obviously, I mean, I don't know how transparent they're going to be with letting us know, if players test positive or how much quarantine there is. I mean, we do know Carl Durrell said that Nate Landman was in quarantine throughout the last month, and today was the first time he's seen him. I know you and I have heard things sort of off the record here and there about quarantine of players, things like that. I'm curious to see how transparent they're going to be with us throughout camp, but it does sound like that first day went off without a hitch. And just to let people know, what Miguel Rueda was telling us, Adam, I just want to run through that real quick, is he was talking about it is a nasal swab, and basically they do the test, and they have to wait 15 minutes before they can process it. But once they process it, he said it takes about 2 or 3 minutes to get that result. So it's about 18 to 20 minutes after they take the test, and those players are in a holding pattern until they do it. And I thought it was interesting. I don't know if it was Miguel or Durrell. I think it was Miguel told us as far as how they group the players. Sometimes it might be coaches that decide that, and sometimes it could be they just let the seniors sleep in and go at a later time. So it's kind of interesting how they group that.
This kind of showed me the difference of how we're going to have to do interviews now. We're doing them over Zoom, obviously. Is Carl Durrell says that Nate Landman's in quarantine for a month, and then Nate Landman later says, "I haven't tested positive yet." And in a normal circumstance, the recorders go off and you kind of get clarification on that stuff. It's harder to do this job, but I feel like we've both been starved to get back into work mode with camp, that you take anything you can get. It's a little bit more awkward now doing the post game or post practice interviews.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and today, CU had some audio issues. I expect them to get it figured out, but I mean, it was tough for those guys, the players, and Durrell to hear the questions we were asking at times, and so certainly not like we're used to. But I do got to say, Adam, that I give CU a lot of credit for I think they're doing the best they can to help us out. I think they're going to do their best to help us out throughout camp, and I think there's good people up there that they're going to get some of that worked out for us. But you're right, it's usually when like Nate Landman's done, he starts walking off. You and I might kind of walk up to him and say, "Hey, just want to clarify this real quick." You don't have that chance to do that. So, it'll be interesting. But, hey, like everything else throughout the last several months, we'll figure it out, right?
Yep, exactly. So they came out with a second pencil depth chart, and there were a few interesting notes on there. I did a story that I picked a guy at each position that I thought was a wild card player, and I would have changed a couple of those picks had I seen this preseason depth chart before running that feature. And the two guys that I would have included in there are running back Joe Davis, who is listed as a co-backup with Jaron Mangum, and then Jeremiah Doss, who is listed as a backup behind Mustafa Johnson, ahead of Naheem Rodman, who I think was listed as a starter on the initial pencil depth chart if memory serves.
Yeah, I was surprised by a couple of those things, and but Joe Davis is one that Darian Hagan told me from the start. He's always been impressed with how well he picks things up and knows the offense, knows how to do a little bit of everything. So I saw Joe at the Buffs March in June, and he was excited and said he's going to be ready. And they all say that, I know, but I mean he felt pretty good about his freshman year and was looking forward to this season. So good for him. Jeremiah Doss is, I think that's more surprising, more on the Naeem Rodman side of it. I mean, it's good to see Jeremiah Doss if he's in second string because he's just had an unbelievable offseason. But Rodman is a guy that I think both of us and most fans are looking forward to seeing and kind of feel once these starters graduate, Rodman's kind of that next guy. I mean, to me, he's that sort of number 4 defensive lineman. But when you look at that depth chart, he's not.
And then you also saw an outside linebacker guy, Thomas, jump ahead of Jamar Montgomery. So it looks like he had a good summer. And then interesting, they switched Chris Miller and Mark Perry. Mark Perry had been listed at star, and Chris Miller had been listed at safety, and they flipped them. Again, this is very fluid. They're one practice in. This could change a lot, but it's clear they're experimenting there at safety in the star position.
Yeah, and I think both those guys could probably be interchangeable. And I would imagine that with both of them, I mean, Chris and Mark are both pretty smart kids. I imagine with both of them, it's going to be, hey, learn both positions, and let's just see where you fit best. And really, for me, with Chris Miller, the number one thing is just stay healthy. Stay healthy so you can play. And I'm excited to see what a healthy Chris Miller can do throughout a full season. Well, a full 7-game season, which if he plays this season, it's still longer than what we've seen him so far. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play throughout this season.
Junior college transfer Jalen Stryker had been listed at safety earlier this summer, now listed at cornerback. And so now at the backup star and free safety position, you've got true freshmen, Torrin Pittman and William Englund listed. If you're talking about concerns, especially from the depth standpoint, I think safety's got to be one of them. Nothing against those true freshmen, but even Carl Jarrell said today, hey, he mentioned Pittman as a guy you're just not going to expect them to be sharp early on because they're swimming so much.
Yeah, and certainly safety is a spot. The whole secondary is a spot that we've looked at and kind of had concerns about the depth there and not really sure what we're going to get there. But the Buffs were high on Torrin Pittman and Will Englund. It's nice to see them there again, sort of like Jeremiah Doss, if they've earned it to get up to that spot. But man, that's a lot of pressure on those true freshmen. But we saw the corners do it last year with KJ Trujillo, Tariq Luckett. So maybe those safeties, if they have to get in there, can do the same.
Again, maybe overanalyzing things. It's a fluid depth chart, but on the depth chart that was released in June, it went Tyler Lytle, Sam Neuer, Brendan Lewis. On this one, it's got an or by those 3 guys' names, which was not surprising, but Carl Jarrell, during his comments during the Pac-12 webinar, made it seem like Tyler Lytle and Sam Neuer have a leg up just from an experience standpoint.
Yeah, he did. I was a little bit surprised, by how he kind of grouped them that way, that he really he kind of labeled Lewis a dark horse and said that, he's behind the others, which you expect as a true freshman, but he kind of, I wouldn't say walk back on it, but when he talked to us, on the media Zoom call on Wednesday, he wasn't really that definitive that, hey, it's Lytle and Neuer and then it's Lewis. He mentioned all 3. So I do think it's going to be a fair competition between all 3. And you're right. It's a pencil depth chart. It's fluid. I imagine that it's going to be week to week or maybe even day to day who plays well.
Did you have any other takeaways from that pencil depth chart?
No, those were the main ones for me. I'm trying to think otherwise, but
Katie Nixon's listed at 2 receiver positions, which lends you to think that he's going to be used a little bit more in the slot this year. And when they have used him in that role, he's done well.
Yeah, and I think what game was it? Washington last year that he had the 2 touchdowns.
Was it at USC?
Or USC, maybe that was it. He had the 2 short touchdown passes. I love the way they used him in that game. I like Dimitri Stanley in that spot as well, but man, I really like Katie Nixon in that spot. And when I've talked to Darren Shiverini, it's been a while now, but when I've talked to him, he's talked about using KD in a sort of a Visca type role, maybe not quite like that, but where he can take some carries out of the backfield and line up in some different spots. And so I could see a situation where it's Dimitri Stanley's basically that slot receiver, but you're going to see KD a little of everywhere.
Did you have any takeaways from Katie Nixon and Nate Landman talking with us? Katie Nixon always has that great personality, talks about how he gets up earlier than he needs to so he can just kind of talk himself up and be positive about the day. Nate Landman, just the consummate veteran guy, that just such a steadying force on that defense.
Yeah, I thought both of them, looked a little bit relieved to be back in football. Also, maybe a little unsure of how this is all going to look. Maybe they were unsure of talking to us through a computer, but I'm sure it's weird for all of them. I mean, for Nate Lamon particularly, like Darrell said, he's been in quarantine for a month, and so but both of them seem like they're not too concerned about things. They're ready to go. And those are two senior leaders, and I think those are guys that they're going to lean on quite a bit. And really, Carl Darrell said Nate Lamon. He goes, first time I've seen him in a month, and he was the same old Nate. And you expect that. I mean, I did see, Nate looked like he has some more tattoos than I've seen before.
Okay.
It looks like he's got some work done there. But those are two guys, Adam, that I think all Buff fans are expecting some good things from this year, particularly Nate Lamon. One thing, I asked him if he thought about opting out, and he said he had. But Coach Darrell kind of talked him into, hey, just wait, let's see what happens, and he seems pretty happy with that decision. But as we kind of suspected maybe a month or two ago, Nate was a kind of an opt-out candidate, but decided to come back, so that's good.
Yeah, I was talking about this on a podcast previously, that had we never gotten a chance to see Nate Lamon in a CU uniform again, that really would have been sad, because he's deserved this senior season, and it's not going to be in ideal circumstances. But with him and Katie Nixon, Mustafa Johnson, probably James Stefano, even though they could theoretically come back for 2021, you've got to probably assume this is their last hurrah, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I posted this the other day, but ran into James at a football field the other day, brought my son to kick, and James helped him out. I chatted with him a little bit. James isn't coming back. I mean, this is it for him. He's 33 years old, and will be 34 by the time the draft rolls around. He wants to go to the NFL, so this is going to be it for him. Looks great, by the way, and saw him boot a 51-yard field goal with plenty of room to spare. So he looks pretty good. But I agree with you on Nate Lamon and even Katie Nixon and Mustafa. If we had never had a chance to see them in CU uniforms again, that would have been sad. I mean, Katie Nixon has had some great moments, but I'm excited to see what he can do. I don't want to say it out of Laviska's shadow, but sort of that way, in that, Laviska's been the main guy. I'd like to see Katie blossom a little bit and have a really good senior year. So I'm glad we get to see all these guys at least one more season.
All right, that was practice one. There's going to be 23 more before that November 7th season opener against UCLA. It's a marathon, not a sprint. We're finally into the marathon, though, which is great. And so we should probably leave the rest of the topics for other days. But it's just great to get back to talking CU football.
Yes, it is. Nice to see you, Adam, and we'll do this again soon.
All right, sounds good.